RuneScape has been around for almost 2 decades now, with millions of accounts created, each with their own unique username. As time goes on, less and less names are available for players to use. It's not much a surprise to think players will fork over billions of in-game gold or thousands of real-world dollars to get their favorite word as their username. In today's video, we explore this underground market and discover how insanely risky it is for both the buyer and seller, although how it's somewhat partially allowed. Let's start off with Jagex's stance on this business. Luckily for us, they have a player support page saying exactly how they feel about it. The first sentence states, "It is against our real-world trading rule to trade character names if it involves real-life money. We do not recommend trading names between accounts." So this means if you're trading, selling, or buying accounts with any form of real-life money, you will be considered real-world trading. However, this also means that trading through the use of items or GP is fine but risky. So now that we know that in most forums it's allowed, how do we go about finding a seller assuming we want to buy a name? I'm not going to link anything personally because the only website I could find is the same site filled with guides on things like botting, selling gold, and so on. So if you do plan on doing this, I highly suggest staying away from that section or finding a different website to do it through. So let's say we found a seller who has a name that we want. First, we should probably determine if the name is considered rare or not, and if we're going to get a good deal. This same forum has a guide on judging the rarity of certain names. A few examples of rare names are things like real-life names, animals, some in-game names, one-letter names, and skill names. These names are considered rare because a lot of them were taken over a decade ago by someone who has since quit. This is also why Jagex has introduced name releases. Regardless, players can log in to keep their name and quit again for a few years. Anyway, because there are rare names, there are also obviously names that aren't considered rare. A few examples are names with suffixes like houses or checking. Next is 3 character names, due to the fact that there are so many combinations, some of which aren't even taken yet. So things like DK7, ZX5, and so on. Made-up words, names with numbers, dictionary words, names with more than one word, and some in-game item names also fall under the category of not rare. So let's say you found a name, it's a fair price, and the seller is going to sell it to you. This is where problems can start to occur. In this community, there is a lot of scamming, and by a lot, I mean a decent percentage of these trades can go wrong at any time during the process. First is dealing with people called name snipers. They simply wait for a name to become available and take it before the buyer can. This is why most sellers hide their available usernames and give hints about what they could be. You'd have to message the seller for the real full name, and this allows them to determine if they think you may be a scammer or not. The seller has to be careful with who they give names to because they could be handing the name right into the hands of a name sniper. For example, if they think the name will be traded soon, they keep a close eye on it and be ready as soon as it's available to steal it. Some of these name snipers are so advanced that they even have bots. What these bots do is constantly check to see if a name is available and taking it as soon as it is. Name sniping is easily the biggest scam within this community, and that is made pretty clear based on how many pin threads warn against it and how to protect yourself from it. So let's say you're about to do the trade and your name gets sniped. Well, one of you is out of luck. The seller has lost his name with nothing in return, or the buyer has lost out on their GP with, once again, nothing in return. Okay, so let's rewind a bit and say that you're about to do the trade and it doesn't get sniped. What happens next? Let's follow it from the seller's side. First, you need 2 RuneScape 3 bonds. The seller will confirm the buyer is ready with the name change typed in and ready to take it. The seller will then change his name to something else. Now that the seller's name has been changed, the buyer should be able to take it, right? Well, it's not exactly that simple. After you change your name, your old name won't become available to the public for 35 days unless you change it a second time. So the seller confirms that the buyer is still ready and switches over to the RuneScape website. Let's say the first time they changed their name, it was to Told Love, just like in this guide. The seller would then change their name to Told Love again, because you can for some reason do that. This is because snipers won't see the name change a second time unless they hover over their in-game name and see it when it happens. So the seller does a countdown and changes their name, and they've sold it. The buyer has it much easier as all they need is a bond or a free name change available, type in the name, and confirm the name change as soon as it's ready. There are other methods available, such as doing the whole thing from the website or the buyer making a new account, but this is the most common one from what I can see. Even with this method, it seems pretty much foolproof, but there's still the potential of a buyer scamming the seller by not paying. Thus, people like middlemen exist to make sure the exchange goes well. Overall, this is a very interesting market due to the fact that it's one of the only underground markets that's for the most part allowed. The potential for scamming is extremely high, but if you can pull it off, you can get that name you've always wanted. Just remember to follow all of RuneScape's rules and educate yourself even further on how to avoid scams. This is not at all meant to be a full comprehensive guide on how this is done. This is just a little overview into this community. So should you actually try to do this, make sure to educate yourself even further and don't break any of RuneScape's rules. One final note from Jagex's support page is, by trading names you are running the risk of supplying a name hoarder with GP to real world trade. We advise carefully against who you are supplying with gold before trading any character names. Supplying a real world trader, even unknowingly, could result in a real world trading permanent ban being added to all of the accounts involved, so do keep that in mind as well. Overall, like I've already said, this is a very risky business, so make sure you are very educated on the matter before going forward with it.